Welcome back to the Fulfilled Female Entrepreneur Podcast. It's your host, Cassandra Rosa. The mission of this podcast is to help you to create a fulfilling life in business. I'm so excited to be joined by Heather today. We just actually recorded a episode for her podcast. So we're going to leave a link so you can go and check that out. Thank you for being here, Heather. I'm excited to learn more about you and your story now.
Thank you, Sandra. Yeah, it's funny. We literally just jumped off of my podcast and now we're on your podcast. So it's like the handoff, high five, and we switch roles.
I love it. And she's also from Toronto. We were talking about on her podcast how it's amazing that we're representing today because in podcast land, it's beautiful. You can connect with people all over the world, but having someone from the same city as you is very special. But aside from that, I want to open up the floor for you to introduce yourself to the listeners.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. See, like, where do you begin? So, let's see. This is how I explain what I do. I combine two superpowers that I have. So I started my first career way back when you did what you were supposed to do after university, and I became a chartered accountant. So I have this like logical business brain that knows how to do spreadsheets and make things work. And after 14 years of doing that, didn't, I was not fulfilled. I knew I was in the wrong role, and I left and I did a complete left turn, and I became a registered massage therapist and a yoga teacher. So I've now been teaching yoga for 20 years, but those two skills of like that wellness side and then the logical, the yin yang side, I can kind of walk with a foot in each world. And so I combine those two superpowers now, and I coach people because I can understand. I understand the business side, how overwhelming it can be, and some people really thrive there, and some people don't. So it's like, how do you support them? And then the wellness world, where people are working, maybe they're working really high. I used to do business coaching for wellness entrepreneurs. They want to bring so much into the world, but they struggle. So it's like I can help them up their logical side, and I can help the business people up their less logical side.
I love
It's like
it.
got that in between place.
I love it. I love it. The overwhelm kind of superhero. I'm here
Yeah,
to help you out on the process.
we can
So
do it.
love it. And I love to ask all of my guests what fulfillment means to them. So I'm so excited to see your point of view about it.
Oh my gosh, fulfillment. Um, there is so when I'm teaching, I get into this place of, we talked about it a little bit when we were talking about intuition on the episode we just did with you, but there's a place inside you that knows what your soul is here to do.
Mhm.
And when you can drop into that place and get a sense of it and then start taking action on it. So for me, fulfillment came when I was helping people and I suddenly realized, oh, I'm not supposed to be counting dollars for millionaires, billionaires. I'm supposed to be helping people. And so my journey ever since I left corporate finance was, what way am I supposed to be helping people?
Mhm.
So, I still teach yoga because I do find that really fulfilling, because that fills me up. At the same time, I can fill someone else up, because I think you do need that balance. So my fulfillment is helping other people, but not at the expense of my own wellness. And, I added in Tai Chi and I added in massage. I actually retired from 14 years of massage because I realized that was an amazing career, but it was starting to take more out of me than
Mhm.
I was able to give back. And I didn't want it to get that level of depletion where I wasn't able to help people anymore. And I mean, part of it was because I had a stroke. We were talking about finding quiet time to hear your intuition earlier. And I spent, during COVID, when people weren't allowed to visit you, I was down at Toronto Western Hospital, which you might know. It's
Mhm.
in the interesting part of downtown Toronto, for Halloween that weekend. No one could visit me and there were no beds. So I spent 3 days in the emergency room. And I was alone, and they told me I'd had a stroke. I thought they were crazy, but
Mhm.
I recognized that they probably knew more than I did, and I couldn't I couldn't do the escape that we normally would do into social media or any of those things because I couldn't see properly. So I had a 3-day silent retreat, and that is when I went, okay, I've got it. The podcast is back to me because I'd had a business podcast. And yes, business coaching is great, but it needs to expand. So I could suddenly see the road to help as many people as I can and still keep myself fulfilled
I
at the
love
same
that.
time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, what a big thing to happen. That gave
I
you
know.
such a divine gift, right? Of,
Yes.
coming back to me, that's the name of her podcast, back to yourself and that experience and really allowing that fulfillment to guide you is such a beautiful thing. And I know that you love to help people with overwhelm and eliminating it.
Yeah.
So why is that your passion? What led you to really focus on this area within this season of your business?
Right. I feel like it came. So I heard a phrase once that, you teach what you need to learn. So I can remember being in corporate where it was like you needed to be on top of everything and be professional and be in this certain way, um, which involved a lot of doing. And all of the demands on me got to a point where I'm like, I had a chiropractor once he's very wise. He actually teaches meditation now. He described it as, Heather, you're juggling all of these balls in the air and you're able to keep them up. But if someone throws one more at you, they're all going down. And I thought, oh my gosh, he's right. So I started to examine what's so the often the source of overwhelm is that need to control everything, right? And the need to control everything is almost like a fear that if you're not controlling it, something's gonna go wrong. The world is gonna end. So I help people with overwhelm because I traveled that road, and it took me. And as we were commenting earlier, I'm never going to be finished on this road, but I've traveled far enough that I've realized which things are causing me to feel like I can't manage. So too much is going on, trying to control too much. And what balls can you put down or, give to someone else, especially as entrepreneurs, especially when we're new entrepreneurs. You're a one person show, right? So you are cleaning the toilet. When I had my own yoga studio for 10 years, you're cleaning the toilets, you are doing the accounting, you're doing the repairs, and you're teaching the classes. So you have to do everything. And when you're trying to stay on top of all those things, and if it's not a bricks and mortar, you're trying to do all your social media and this and this and this and this and this, and it becomes overwhelming because you feel like you need to do everything. I think, Cassandra, you said it earlier, I needed to write the book and do the social media and have the podcast and have the clients and social media will feed that kind of anxiety. So having a perspective to step back and go, wait a minute, is this serving what I want to achieve? Is this serving what's going to fulfill me? Or is this serving an expectation that's outside of me? So that's, again, that intuition piece. You know, there are businesses that thrive by not being on social media.
Right.
Believe it or not, friends. It's like, no, it's impossible. But having that space, because we talk about taking space for yourself, having that space for yourself to press pause on your day, taking a breath and saying, what is actually important right now and what don't I need to do? And I don't know if you've heard of Denise Duffield Thomas. She wrote she's written a few books. Her latest one, she rebranded to Chill and Prosper. And it
Mm.
talks a lot about, as a female entrepreneur, how to approach things. And her it was called Get Rich Lucky Bitch, one of her first books. And one of the first things she says is make space for yourself, offload the stuff you don't need to do. And she said, as soon as you can, hire a housekeeper. Now she had 3 kids. So she said, because I don't have time to clean the house, you know, and I
Mhm.
want to be able to spend time with my children, but I need time for my business. So replacing tasks that don't really need you specifically. You know, you are your brand when you're an entrepreneur. You are the face of your brand, and you don't need to do everything, which is a hard step for some people,
Mhm.
right?
Yes. Yes. So many beautiful questions to ponder.
Hmm.
And I really recommend for everyone listening to write them down and journal on them. I think they're very good, and all the beautiful insights that will come from them are really powerful. And I want to learn more about your experience with overwhelm. What was that like for you? How did that show up for you?
It's interesting. So, my most recent experience actually was in during when COVID first hit. And it was unexpected because I thought, oh, I've dealt with overwhelm. I'm now this yoga teacher, I'm this massage therapist, I'm this groovy, calm wellness person. And when COVID hit, I wasn't allowed to work. You can't you you can't treat people because my business then was mostly in person because I hadn't expanded my coaching business very much at that point. It was just kind of a side thing, and I can remember when I suddenly couldn't work and it was unclear. So that loss of control. They don't know when it's going to stop. Don't know when you're going to be allowed to work again. I had to cancel a whole month's worth of appointments because I was usually fully booked. And what happened for me was um, was a very physical reaction. So some people they just get stressed, they can't sleep, maybe they can't eat, maybe they eat too much. Mine was a very physical, visceral thing that was happening. And even though all the work that I'd done, I didn't recognize it for what it was at first. And I went to my doctor because I said, I think there's something like she did an ultrasound because she thought, I was having like some kind of abdominal problem, like maybe I had a tumor or something. And your mind can spin. When you're in that space, your mind doesn't spin positive outcomes. Your mind spins negative outcomes. So I was like, oh my God, I have cancer. I'm going to die. All of these terrible things started coming. And I went to the ultrasound and I'm lying on the table and I'm like, wait a minute, when did this start? I'm just freaking out. But remember to trust the universe, trust your intuition. You're going to be fine. They did the ultrasound. They're like, oh, yeah, everything's fine. I'm like, I know, I know. But I needed to be lying there doing nothing, waiting for the ultrasound to go, oh, wait, no, I'm fine. Okay. And that pause allowed that space.
Mhm.
And that was a kind of another shock for me that I was like, wow, I thought I was doing really well. And not to say that I'm not, like I was doing really well, but those things can still sneak up on you even when you've done your work. It doesn't stop. You keep going, right?
Yes. Yes, I like that you even said right from the top how your most recent experience, right?
Yeah.
Even though you teach things in your coaching and help people with certain things with your healing, those opportunities still come up for you to be able to work through them. And I love again this kind of solitude message, kind of similar to what we're talking about on your podcast. Of you had those two physical symptoms that had caused you to pause and to receive such powerful insights to help you work through the overwhelm that you are experiencing. Something else you said earlier was about control, how
Yeah.
control and overwhelm are so tied in together. So, can you speak a little bit more to that? I'm
Yeah.
interested to
So
see your
if you think
perspective on it.
I and it's interesting, this has become a recent revelation for me, um, relatively recent, because when you think about control, uh, it doesn't always have a negative connotation. Like I'm just being super organized. I just know how it can be done. I'm just the best person to do it. And you become indispensable.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps it's your ego saying they need you, this makes you feel needed. Um, but in reality, from a business perspective, no one's indispensable, right? And being the person who has to do everything is not sustainable. So we talked about burnout when you were on my episode. Like when you were your super amazing, successful, killing it self, that wasn't sustainable because you were doing everything. But it could have been that because you were doing everything because you wanted it done you thought it had to be done in a certain way to be done right. I'm just making guesses here. That no one else could do it. So when you hear people saying no one else can do it, I'm thinking of lots of um, clients and friends. Even if you know someone who you would call a control freak because they need to control everything, that is a fear reaction often. That if you're not controlling it, you're not going to know what the outcome is. You're not going to be able to navigate it. It's an unknown. We don't like the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can actually breathe through that anxiety of not knowing and letting things unfold, trusting the universe, letting things unfold, then not being able to control all the pieces allows that overwhelm to turn down because you're not trying to do everything. One of the things that I tell people is your brain is a factory, not a warehouse. So when you're trying to control everything, it's like everything is in your head, shipping, receiving, accounting, everything is in your head and it's like too crowded. It's like, no, 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 that's not what it's for. Your
Mm-hmm.
brain is for creation. So take all of that admin work, all of those pieces out of your head, send them out, let someone else do them. I mean, I often use an easy example, my website. I wanted my new website exactly how I wanted it, and I was trying to create it myself. And it was taking me, I have the capability. It's taking me hours and hours and hours and hours. And one day I was sitting there, I'm like, this is not making me any money creating this website. So why am I doing this? And I calculated like my hourly rate, how much time I was spending on it. I'm like, I should pay someone to do it. So
Mm-hmm.
I hired someone off of Fiverr in Bangladesh, of all places, who was amazing. And he created my website in about a day because he's an expert.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, can you do this? Can you shift that? Can you change this? And now I have this beautiful website. And I can make changes on it myself if they're small, or I can just send it to him and go, can you create
Amazing.
this new thing? So I wonder sometimes if that need to control is to prove that you're capable of doing something, especially as women, because we feel we need to overprove. If we feel like if we lose that control of it, that it's
Mm-hmm.
going to be not what we want, that unknown aspect, or if it's a fear of something else. Like I feel like there's another like underlying hidden thing that maybe we're not trusting ourselves enough.
Mm-hmm.
So keeping control of it doesn't it doesn't help us trust ourselves more, but it does somehow make us feel like we can we're a better person to do it. It's a very strange kind of contrast.
Yeah,
Does that
cultivating
make sense?
safety, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna
Yeah,
say, is a
cultivating the
word coming to you?
safety. Yeah,
Yeah.
cultivating the safety, right? And
Which is we're not doing it in the right way, so we're getting overwhelmed and not feeling safe,
yeah,
right?
totally, totally. If you're overwhelmed, it makes you pause, right? And creates that stuckness, which cultivates the safety within us. So I love all your sharing. It's been so insightful. And I would love if you could share with the listeners some tangible ways that they can move through the overwhelm or that sense of needing to control situations. What are some
Right.
baby steps they can do to apply all the wisdom that you've already shared today?
So one of the first things that especially the clients who are like really in that overwhelmed state, and it's a little old school because it's paper and pencil or paper and pen, like as big a sheet of paper as you can find, brain dump everything onto it. Like book an hour in your calendar and write down everything that you think you need to do that has to get done. Like just vomit it all onto the page because that's going to get it out of your head. And you might be able to start to see a pattern of things that have been hanging around for a long time. It's like, write that article. Is that important?
Mhm.
And it might be important, but is it urgent? So and sometimes I'll use Post-it notes actually and a blank wall and start to move them around to get a sense of maybe some things can go together. So, like some repetitive tasks can start to go together, and maybe you're in a position where you can hire a VA or someone who you can offload those onto. And it's okay. In the beginning, there's a learning process. The beginning is always a bit clunky and bunky, but once it's up and running, it's priceless. Can you see things that are urgent and that you need to do immediately? Like, you really need this done now, like invoicing someone. That could be an urgent and immediate thing. So you might start to move them into quadrants, like urgent and important, need to do away. Urgent, but doesn't need to be done right away. Important, but not urgent. And you can start to move them around. So I'll get a sense of that. And then I'll start to move them into a timeline. So I like the Post-it notes because I can keep moving them around and keep readjusting. So, you might have I still use a calendar book. And I have an electronic one as well, but I'll move Post-it notes like, this is getting done this week, and this is getting done at some point in the future, but it doesn't matter when. So I'll have, like, I have a to-do list called today, this week, sometime later. So you can start to get them down on just help you to organize your thoughts. And often, because we're doing this task, even though it's not quiet and even though it's task-based, revelations will come up, like connections will start to be made. You can come up with like, oh my gosh, I see this up here on this paper. If I could, get this, like new ideas will come and you can capture those as well. So it gives that some creativity space as well as some organizing space. And you don't have to do that every week or every day because maybe you only need to do it like once a month or once a quarter. It depends on how much variety there is in what you do. But doing that on a regular basis really starts you to be able to trust that things are in control the way you need them to be in control. Things are getting done when they need to get done. And it's all out of your brain and down on something tangible. So you don't have to try and say, what was I supposed to be doing this week? I can't remember. You've already got it sorted. So that's kind of like one of those big but easy exercises that can really help kind of just get the overwhelm turned down and feel like you have got a handle on everything.
I love it. It's something I actually do for myself. I like the Post-it note idea. I really like the quadrants. I
Yeah.
haven't done it that way, but those are awesome, very tangible tips. So if everyone's experiencing overwhelm when you're listening to this, after finishing the last bit of this episode here, go and do that exercise.
Yeah,
It's so
exactly.
powerful to help you to shift your energy and being able to be focused, right? And not caught up in the stuckness, but taking action towards what's going to fulfill you most. Do you want to
Yeah.
talk a little bit about the podcast?
Yeah. So I have a podcast that comes out weekly called Back to Me. And that came about when I was in the hospital, again, with the stroke that I had. And every single week, I interview an amazing human being who has really a perspective or something that they bring, some way that they are helping um, people to really thrive in their lives, right? So when I talk about, I created a program called the Thriving Life Method, and we talk about 6 aspects of wellness, and they spell the word become because I love acronyms. So, you could hear topics on body, physical wellness is B, E, emotional wellness, C is your community or your relationships, who you surround yourself with, your occupation or your job or whatever it is. Like some people, they just do all volunteer work. Some people are retired, and I have a client who calls it her beloved vocation. She's a poet. And your money, so your financial wellness, and then your engagement, which for me is your passion and your spirit. So we look at those 6 aspects of, we talk about everything and anything in that podcast. So, you and I talked about intuition and getting clarity and confidence as an entrepreneur, but also just as a human. Everyone could use that. And I've talked to actually an intuition coach who teaches people to connect to their intuition. I've talked to psychics. I've talked to financial planners. I've talked to health nutritionists, like so many amazing people. I talked to a somatic sexologist who teaches people what their sexual fantasies are actually about. I was like, wow. She was like brilliant. She was a brilliant guest. So that's the podcast that comes out weekly. And then I have a pop-up podcast, which is just a little short 3-episode podcast. And that one you get at the website stepuptothrive.com. It doesn't show up with my other podcast. And it gives you the first steps to go through those 6 areas of wellness. And there's a little workbook, and it just kind of takes you through, like, here's the introduction to how to kind of tune into what's going on with you. Here's how to evaluate what's going on with you. And here's some first steps to help you get going. And it just helps people. Some people don't know where to start. They're like, I don't even have time to think about it. Here is where we're just going to take you one step at a time through it so you can get going. Right. So, and I would just want people to be able to start their journey towards what it is they want versus being in that overwhelmed state.
I love that. We're going to leave links to the show notes and in the description of this video so you can go and take part in that and listen to the episode that we recorded as well. It was so much fun.
It was so fun.
Is there any other places that they can connect with you to learn more about your coaching and all that you do?
Yeah, my website is heatherstewart.coach, which is pretty easy to remember. And it has all the links to all my socials, LinkedIn, Instagram, all of the alls. We put our feelers out everywhere because we don't know exactly where going to people be. And my podcast is in all the podcast places too. So the easiest place to find everything is to go to heatherstewart.coach.
Thank you so much for coming on, Heather. It's been so beautiful to hear about your story and all the wisdom that you shared today. Everyone go check out the description of this video or the show notes to connect with Heather.
Thank you. It's been awesome.
Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you'll be notified every time I'll upload a new video on Thursday. See you in the next one. Bye.